Johnson at speed in the Blue Falcon. Dick Johnson, one of the two drivers in the Brian Bird Ford team.
I hate to think what the final lap time.
Oh, he's hit the fence and he's gone off the track into a tree.
Oh, we've had another bang and there's that the
Dick
race.
Johnson. Dick Johnson.
When I started heading through the trees, I thought, gee, I could be in trouble here.
There wasn't much in the help department. We sort of did most of the stuff ourselves, working out of home basically.
It was the Johnson and Brock show back in those days really, and it was big.
Household name, a name that I grew up sort of aspiring to and looking up to and all that sort of stuff. He just loves being to the track. He comes to most of our races still to today, which I think is just awesome.
You realise where it all began, you know, where he started, and that was just a pure hardcore racer, and he still is like that today.
Well, this is actually from the, would you believe, the MG Car Club hill climb at Mt Cotton, which I've been a member of the MG Car Club since I was 14. And I'm the patron of the club now, and it is exactly the same hill climb. Believe it or not, I didn't lose it, I just drove straight up the hill because it just does a very sharp right turn very shortly. My dad was the sales manager of Eagers, who were the biggest distributors of Holdens in Queensland. I was a Holden fan, and as I got nowhere, I decided that when somebody came along and gave me the opportunity of driving a Ford, which was Brian Burt, at that point in time I didn't care what it was because I didn't have to pay the bills. I jumped in and have never left. You used to have a number, you had to apply to CAMS to get a number, and a guy by the name of Graham Littlemore, and we decided we'd make our own little team, and we painted our cars exactly the same colour, etc., etc. And his number was 71. And so I applied to get either 72 or 70, and they weren't available. So I said, well, why don't we just turn it around the other way and make it 17, and that's where it is.
But he has gone into the fence.
Well, there was a situation where we were leading the race after the early start of the race. I think Kevin Bartlett was leading and Brocky was there, and we know that the Commodore just didn't have the outright speed to be able to continue on. And Brocky was trying so hard that he ended up clipping a car across the top of the mountain, and he had to make a pit stop early in the race. And so we continued on and actually put a lap on him. And then KB, because we knew that the Achilles heel of the Camaro were the brakes. And so around about lap 12 or 14, he had brake issues, and he sort of pulled out into the pits, and that was his day done, so to speak. And we were cruising around thinking, well, this is going to be really good if we manage ourselves properly. And I came out of the cutting, which you know is a very steep part of the racetrack, and in those days we used to have the tilt tray trucks to go around and pick up either broken down cars or crashed cars or whatever. And the truck driver stopped almost beside the rock that was on the road, which had been accidentally dislodged by somebody in the hill. And I came around the corner up over the crest, which was a blind crest, and then I saw the rock, and then I saw the truck, and I said, well, I'm not going to go in the back of the truck, so I tried to go around it, but eventually hit it, and that's what transpired. The car hit the fence and broke, so I was out of the race.
No one knew at the time how he felt, but that was thought that was it. So I suppose we've got to be thankful for how it did end up. So.
You know, the financial element would have been immense then, the risks they were taking and the sacrifice they were making, probably him and Jilly, for that to happen. You can't actually imagine it, such a different era back then. So to get the support to build a new car and come back and win it the next year, I mean, it's, yeah, how could you ever script that? But absolutely incredible. I suppose that would have driven him, you know, would have driven that passion even further to go and do what he did. And
well, Jilly and I got home and we used to end up with the post office mail vans reversing up to our front door and dropping off these big canvas bags that was full of mail. And we sat on the bed and we actually read every single one of them. And they came from everywhere, from little kids to overseas people to just people who weren't fans of motor racing, but obviously watched Bathurst. And it was, it really was a very humbling sort of experience.
Oh, we had the postman bringing bags and bags of mail. It was ridiculous. We didn't know what to do. So there was so much stuff that we tried to get through. We got through most, but such appreciative of what we got. It was just amazing. So honestly, we were pretty young and it was so hard to take in.
Dick Johnson is the winner of the 1981 James Hardy 1000.
After what everyone had done back in 1980 and that, and to come into the following year, we as a team felt we can't let all these people down. So we put in as big of effort as we possibly could. John was a driver from Queensland. He was an extremely talented guy, even the age, I think he's almost the oldest guy that ever won Bathurst. And just an iconic bloke, there's not one person in the world's got a bad word to say about him.
Oh, everybody's hero, Dick Johnson.
When you're on a qualifying lap, you're giving it your all, but actually I remember the car was understeering very badly going through Forest Elbow, and when I got to the end of the wall, I clipped the back of the wall, that's fine, but when I got to the end of it, it broke the steering arm off on the front right-hand wheel, and when I started heading through the trees, I thought, gee, I could be in trouble here. And once the car stopped, that was fine. I thought, okay, well, I tried to get out the driver's door, and obviously when you see it, it would have been very difficult. So I got out through the passenger side, and from that point until I was walking up pit lane at the back of the pits, I don't remember a thing, and maybe that's because Brocky picked me up on the way down.
You know, you don't sort of have those things in your mind, but when something happens, you go, oh, that's pretty serious. So that sort of gives you a little bit of a jolt. But if you thought about that all the time, you wouldn't sort of go and do it. So
I only had a fan very recently come up to Anton and I, and he had some of the bark framed. He'd gone there that night after qualifying, collected some of the bark with the green paint still all over it, and I sent the photo straight to Dick and said, how's this, you know?
Yeah, it was an interesting time after that, I can assure you, because that's the garage at home where we used to build the car and things like that, and that door you see there is, I think Stephen still has, hanging in the garage.
'05 dealer team Commodore Peter Brock at the helm in the race as well.
Boy, we had some fun together. I knew him from in the very early 70s, all the way through his career. He changed a lot over those years, but at the end of the day, I'd race against that guy every day of the week. He was just brilliant. He was a guy that if he couldn't win a race fair and square, he wouldn't win it. That was the one, 1981 at Lakeside, and for the entire length of that race, we were sort of no further than that apart, and on the second lap of the race, my car broke a front sway bar, which was quite funny. And as you can see, because it didn't have a front sway bar, it was rather loose at the rear end, and it was a real effort to sort of keep Rocky behind, and he had built a special car for that race, and that's where our career really started. Yeah, I think we had a number of battles over the years, and I don't think we ever swapped paint once, so we had great respect for one another.
Dick, we were just talking to you. We felt sorry that we might have put you off, but it looked like the rear wings collapsed on the car.
It certainly has, Michael, and I tell you, it's like a fly swat without it, I can give you the mail order.
No, it's unbelievable. As a kid, sitting beside my dad watching Bathurst, I remember like it was 5 minutes ago, and if it wasn't for him being willing to, you guys, or the TV guys, to strap cameras in there and have a go to see what we go through, we wouldn't be here today. This was a very, very enjoyable part of motorsport, to be able to sort of have a chat with the commentary team, Mike Raymond, when we were driving around Bathurst and places, was just part and parcel of what the racing was, and something very special, and that's probably what got me into the US in a lot of ways, because with the NASCAR thing, they went over there to sort of introduce it into NASCAR as well, and they put it in my car at the first race I went over there, which was quite adventurous, I must admit.
How cool is this thing, the state of the art, what it can do and that, and let alone Dick's commentary and also Peter Williamson at the time, the sayings and that, and how they could concentrate with that going on in the background of them. You look at them now, they're tiny.
Greg was just a ripper guy who did amazing things on motorbikes, and had a damn good career in cars as well. And we asked him to join us back in the middle 80s, just prior to the Sierras coming out. He ran with us at Bathurst in '86, and then '87 he came into the Sierras, and with pressure from other sponsors, etc., that they wanted to change and try something different. So, and hence, unfortunately, Harry, as we used to call him, Greg Hansford, had to sort of depart from the family.
A good friend, yeah, taken way too soon from us, but his talents speak for himself. He struggled with the Sierras, but there was only a handful of people could actually drive the Sierras. But when he won Bathurst, I was so happy for him. But that night, Harry, as we called him, he was up in our shed at Bathurst, drinking with us as part of the family. He was always welcome anywhere, but yeah, just a nice guy. And
Bauer will win it. John Bauer across the line. He takes victory, merely a half a car over Dick Johnson.
This is the first year I drove for DJR. All of a sudden, I'd landed in this really competitive place through no doing of my own. It was a stroke of luck, and and then they decided to go to Silverstone. Like, I thought I was living a little boy's dream. We stayed in this old hotel near Silverstone. It was just fabulous times, and the car was. Poor old Rudy Eggenberger, who's now deceased, I reckon it took 10 years off his life.
That there is lap 1 coming down Hanger Straight of the start of the Silverstone TT. And we absolutely smoked them, and they still talk about it today.
John Bauer gets it sideways, but he cracks victory in round 3 here at Winton Motor Raceway this afternoon.
My first year with them was '88, and when I turned up at DJR, they were just about to hit their straps, you know, so I sort of rode, I say to many people, I rode around on his coattails for years, and that's true, you know, I mean, I was a beneficiary of all the work that went on behind the scenes with the people and the technology, and yeah, so I have never lost sight of that fact.
From a teammate's point of view and a very, very good friend's point of view, he's been an enormous part of our team right from 1988 all the way through till the end of '97, and that was probably one of the longest partnerships, I think, in Australian motorsport, and he fitted in extremely well to our team, unbelievably talented, and was a great mentor to Stephen. And at the end of the day, unfortunately, not through our decision, just through his own decision to sort of go his own way, which was extremely disappointing for me at the time, and it was one that took me a while to get over.
I'm very proud of the fact that, you know, we're all still friends. That to me is important. I mean, I went my own way at the end of 1998, which, you know, in hindsight was probably not the right thing to do, but when I say I should have probably stayed with the DJR.
You couldn't have got a better support driver for Dick with the championships. The Bathurst wins, our podium finishes there, and then when Bowie won the championship, that was the icing on the cake for him.
Look, I think that's a very special moment. That's one that I'll treasure for the rest of my life, because I don't think, and certainly in this day and age, you'll never get to the point where you'll get two generations sort of driving with each other at the biggest event in the country, and I had the fortune of being able to do it 2 years in a row. So. And in the final year, we just missed the podium, but we were fourth in the race, which was a pretty good effort considering.
They have done the double! Courtney second, wow. Johnson third.
That was a big day. I remember it like yesterday, 2007, the 1000. Did not miss a beat. The car had good engine, good donk down Conrod, well balanced. It was just one of those really, really rewarding days. But then for Stevie J to be in the car at the end in those treacherous conditions, I remember thinking, geez, I don't want to be in there right now. And to feel the energy in the garage, to see Dick and Jill, and they'd been through a bit, you know, in the last 12 months before. The team had been in a bit of strife, but we're on the way up, and just, you know, I could see the family element, their son leading the race with only 5-6 to go. The joy in Steve's eyes, but the pain in his eyes to be third, and I think still to this day, he drove so well. He really did. A big fan of Stevie J. I honestly really am. Amazing driver. And I know the pressure he felt every time he went to the mountain.
We just won both races. It was the first time we ever used the soft tyre, and mate, we cleaned up. The thing was so lit. I remember we then went on to win both races the next weekend at Winton, but it was such a good moment for us as a team to. I think that was when we really hit our straps and sort of took on 888, and I think we just passed them in the championship, or it was sort of, we gapped them or had a really good weekend and beat both their cars. And it was just, we were such a good, like, we were all mates, and we all wanted it as much as each other. That's a big part of what got us through that crazy year that 2010 was, for so many reasons.
A new V8 Supercar champion is crowned here at Sydney Olympic Park.
James came along, and this particular race is probably one of the proudest moments of our team's life, I think, because to me it was the greatest team effort we've seen in motorsport in my lifetime.
So this moment here is easily the most special moment for me in my whole career. And you know, we had that big accident that everyone knows about. We all came into the pits at the same time. But to see how much the guys right here, I'll get there. So they wanted it as much as I did, and to see them like burning their hands and their arms and stuff to get the car repaired in time and to get it out before the Triple Eight guys. So we ended up completing that last lap was it was pretty special. Something that it's best moment of my life apart from having the kids was that. So.
Young 25-year-old who has the makings of being one of the very best we've ever seen.
Extremely talented young guy, and he was very, very intense in the way he wanted to have people around him. Mind you, he had all the best people around him. He had the best car around him. But added to that with his talent, I think it was a no-brainer, to be quite honest.
And it still blows our mind the pace he could extract from the car. He'd made the job look that easy, and he was at home in the car.
In 2017, I became a DJR Team Penske driver, and it was one of those things where you knew the history of that team, you knew what you were going to be a part of now with Roger Penske's involvement, but to drive for Dick Johnson and Roger Penske, two legends of the sport, it was probably one of the coolest moments of my career. You know, winning Bathurst and Car 17 was so special because, you know, as we all know, Dick's legacy there at Bathurst in Australia. To drive that car across the line was so special, and then to have him up there on the podium with me, including Roger, was really special as well. The whole reason I left Car 17 as Car 17 when I won the championships, not take the #1, was because I wanted 17 to be a part of, you know, my career in supercars as long as I could. And, you know, Dick never took the #1. You know, it wasn't good enough for him, so it wasn't good enough for me. And when I'm driving Car 17, I took the family's legacy and to heart. Roger Penske is probably, you know, the top 3 team owners in the world that you want to drive for. You know, everyone knows who Team Penske is. Everyone knows what we represent, and to drive him was extra special. I remember meeting him for the very first time. You know, that was a special moment. But then to race in front of Roger for the very first time was special. And I think what really was even more cool was my first ever race win for DJR or Team Penske. I won with Roger in town. So I had Roger and Dick there at the same time.
Because Roger, at the very top of everything, he used to put #1 was presentation. And he said, if you get that right, he said, everything else will follow. Surround yourself with the right sort of people and you won't go wrong. And that's exactly what happened. The right sort of people with Scotty and Ludo and the people we had in here who were very, very talented and just needed the leadership, which through Jeff Swartout from the US that came over. It was a hell of a journey, and we learned an awful lot from that, and I'm very, very pleased to say that that's continued on.
He was our team owner, especially, you know, he was our guy that we went to when Roger wasn't in town, when Tim Cindric wasn't in town. Ryan was the guy, and you know, I think if it wasn't for Ryan, you know, DJR itself wouldn't exist today.
And I think that's something that, you know, people often forget, something that he doesn't get enough credit for. And I certainly, you know, put a lot of, you know, DJR's existence today down to Ryan's generosity and Ryan's passion for not only Dick Johnson Racing, but for motorsport itself.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's passionate about this team, and he's, you know, a big fan of Dick Johnson. And every time you speak to him, you know how much this place means to him. You know, the cars, the team, the partners, the history. He's the sort of the guy that knows it all and lives and breathes it. So, and he's done wonders for this team. Obviously, he's a massive asset to it. So, it's been really cool working with him and being part and driving his race cars.
I'm stoked for DJ and Ryan. I think they've found an amazing partner with the Ralph family to come on board with the team.
Not a shift, but you know, an evolution of the team, and it's very fitting time with Gen 3 and all these things. So I think that's going to be a really cool thing to be part of for myself and Will and the whole team.
Lovely, lovely guy, and I think the team's in safe hands.
I cherish my time that I've been here with Dick and Jill. You've always been part of the family, and I feel part of the family. You know, watch Steve grow up, now we're watching Jet. Yeah, and there's been a lot of good times. It's been a bit of a roller coaster like Luna Park, but the last few years, it's good to see it's coming good. And I'm happy it's also working for Dick and Jill for all the sacrifice they've put in for us.
To be in this position now with a team that I adore, with a brand that I adore, putting a lot of pressure on myself, but yeah, to now be unlocking some things, feeling as good as I've ever felt behind the wheel, just, you know, really gelling with the team and an engineer and driving a beautiful race car, like getting some of those buzzers inside the car is just like nothing else. And I'm just really grateful at this stage of my career I've been able to, you know, bang out a bit of form like this. I want more, but it's really cool, particularly in car 17. I'm really stoked.
I can honestly say I'm probably sorry to say that I've put her through so much drama over a lifetime, and not only myself, but certainly then with Stephen and now with our grandson Jet. So it's been fairly traumatic for her, I think.
I wouldn't give it up for the world, really. I mean, I couldn't see myself doing anything else. I've enjoyed nearly everything that we've done, so if it makes him happy, I'm happy. And the kids, you know, they enjoyed it too, so yeah, I wouldn't give it up for anything.
That's special. That's the best ever. Yeah. I think it's the highlight of my life.